if he's going to be here or not, but he was in Vegas for the weekend.
All right. Let's just go ahead and get started. It's 4:00. Welcome to the June EIC meeting. I'll lead us in a brief invocation, and then I don't know if it's on here or not, but following that, I'd like to welcome our new members. So if you will join me in prayer. Dear God, we come before you with humble hearts, asking you to help us make decisions that are right for Kerrville, that are best for Kerrville, and that are for good of the citizens of Kerrville and all that we do. We ask for your guidance, discernment, and wisdom as we review and have conversations about things that matter to us here in Kerrville, Texas. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, so let's see. Looks like everybody new is on this side today. So we've got Council Member Jeff Harris, who was appointed as a council representative. And just to be clear, we don't have to have the council liaison, but it's great to have one. I'm glad you're here. And then Mr. Pius. Yes, we've met once, but if you'll introduce yourself to the group, it's great to have you on board with us.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
And your work in?
Yes, me and my partner, we operate a financial advisory firm, so we give people investment advice.
Okay, we probably could use some of that on here from time to time. Very good. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And have you had a chance to go through any orientation yet, or you just?
Yes.
Okay.
Michael Hornis was nice enough to sit with me today and give me some information.
Get you started.
Got a lot of stuff to read. That's
Okay.
for sure.
All right.
Look forward to it.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Well, I do have a clarification just from last meeting. It was just on my mind because there was a question about when do we call public hearings. And Michael and Mike were both out. So I did get some clarification on that so that we as a board know how that works. You're standing to answer me, or do you want me to clear?
I feel like I just need to stand.
Okay. I mean, I could tell you what I learned, or you could tell us what the rule of thumb is, whatever you want to do.
My basic rule of thumb is don't ask the attorney if you want a specific answer that you already know about. But I asked Mike, and y'all met the intent of what you were going after, right? It was necessary for you all to call a public hearing, to have a public hearing, and so making the motion to approve the project, and in order not to forego that process, we put it on the agenda and posted in the paper that you all would host a public hearing today on the James Avery project.
Yeah. So if y'all recall, last time we met, we had the James Avery project listed as a potential action item, and we motioned to approve it, and then there was a question as to whether it needed to be a public hearing or not. And I believe what I was told was the general rule of thumb is if we're considering any projects greater than $10,000 and we want to move those to the next step, then we call a public hearing. Am I correct in saying that? Any project, any amount is always going to go to a public hearing. So we're going to consider whether or not we want to call the public hearing.
And I put on there, approve the funding agreement, where normally I would put consider calling a public hearing. So it's my fault.
No, it's okay. I think we all had questions though. So it's good to know if there's any kind of project that is going to involve dollars. Now we know it will go to a public hearing regardless. So just so we know going forward. And that's what we're doing. The project that was on the James Avery project that was listed last meeting is on for public hearing at this meeting. Okay.
And same with the Heart of the Hills.
I think we called I don't even remember now. I don't want to misspeak. Yes, so anything that we're going to approve financially is going to go for public hearing. Okay. We do those the same way. Is that what you remember? Okay. All right. Any other questions about that? Okay. All right, so next item up is item 3, Visitor Citizens Forum. This would be for individuals that are wanting to speak before this body and do not want to speak on a specific agenda item. Do we have anyone signed up?
We have no citizen speakers.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to item 4A, approval of the minutes from our May 2024 meeting. Those were sent out for review.
I'll make a
Any
motion
discussion?
to approve them.
Thank you. We have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
And it carries unanimously. Let's see. Monthly reports, KEDC. Gil, Katie?
Madam Chair, members of the board. They're working or no? Yes? All right, well, first and foremost, Council Member Harris and Mr. Paz, welcome aboard to the EIC. When I saw it, I was like, somebody with my same name. I was excited about that. All right, so we continue working with the Megacrete project. They'll be back in town this week for another round of visits, meeting with some of the suppliers and local businesses and vendors. They are looking now at starting the permitting process soon and clearing the site. Tomorrow, Salvador Garza, who's the president and CEO of Megacrete, is going to be presenting at the APO Community Advisory Council, which is the Aggregate Production Operations. And that was at the request of Commissioner Paces, so we'll see what the participation level is like there. While they're here, they're also going to be meeting with Schreiner University in regards to their workforce needs and their talent needs as well. Then in mid-July, they're going to be back for about a week, meeting again with additional suppliers and then their engineers out of San Antonio, which is going to culminate in a big investors meeting. Both the Herbs and the Zambranos, which some of you all have already met, they'll be in town at that point in time, touring the site and getting an update on the project and progress has been made on the project. And they've also requested a meeting with the new mayor as well. Moving on to some of the other activity we have, we've met a couple of times now with a developer out of Dallas that's looking at a major investment. It's high-end multi-housing and commercial. And actually, that one's already been in the media and the local papers. It's a project off of Holtzworth Drive, which is spearheaded by the city. And then last month, we met with 3 investors out of Sweden. So that was through our network, and we heard that they were going to be in Austin. So from one day to the next, I just booked it out there to make sure that I got in front of them. They're looking at doing business in the Carolinas, Florida, and Texas. They have 2, maybe 3 manufacturing projects, another one in the green energy, and then another one in the tech sector. They're planning to be back in the fall to meet 5 to 6 different cities, tour and meet those cities, which Kerrville now will be one of them. So it was good to get out there and get in front of them. Julie Davis with CVB, she sent us a lead. It's a developer out of San Antonio. They're looking at investing in multi-housing, as well as commercial and possibly a hotel. And they called us up because they wanted to hear from the EDC what the business atmosphere was like here in Kerrville. And that's where a project like Killdeer and Megacrete, both of which were incentivized by this board, that's where it comes into play. Because when he was asking about, like, talk to me about what's going on in Kerrville and what's the business atmosphere like, it's like, well, allow me to explain about the last deal that we just closed. And when you're able to really start a meeting like that, no kind of advertising can really give you a leg up like that. So it's really, if you've heard me say before, it's about connecting the dots in economic development. There's a science that goes into it, and that's one of them. So he absolutely enjoyed hearing everything that we had going on and working that big project. And again, it just helps with the narrative that we have as far as being wide open for business. Wrapping up here, we met with also a site selector out of LA. They've got, they represent different outfits out of the Midwest, which is usually we'll see a lot of relocations and expansions coming out of there. And usually it's companies that either need to be in Mexico or in proximity to. So it puts us at a good vantage point as far as I mean, we're 3 hours away and close to the major artery, which is I-35. So, so again, they were asking for some information from us. And then we have our, for our new board members, we have a new member board orientation in August. It'll actually be the week of the EIC meeting, so it'll be 2 months from now. And that's for new board members, new council members, and new county commissioners. And we'll be sending out the dates soon, so you all can mark your calendars. And really, it's just a great opportunity to come in and learn about who we are, what we do, and why we do what we do. And then lastly, on the media relations side, we've had some good media interviews here in the last month. One of them was with Business View. It's a national publication in regards to businesses, and it goes to a lot of corporate executives. And then the Texas Real Estate podcast, which is actually airs nationally. So we had some very good conversations and a great way to promote Kerrville there. And then the New York Times, that one was because I had a hand in the SpaceX project many years ago. I'll get called every now and then by some of these major publications. In this case, it was the New York Times. And whenever that happens, Kerrville's on there because that's my title. So we'll take it, especially in an article with the SpaceX. So that'll be coming out soon. And then I thought about mentioning this or not, but I'll mention it. I'll leave you with this. We're hopeful that we're going to be getting a site visit. We are working with yet another major company that's looking to. They're looking at several communities in the state of Texas. We're one of 5 communities, so we're on their short list. We're hopeful we'll be getting a site visit from them here in the next month. And if we do, I think we'll have a very a great opportunity there. And like I've said, big fish follow other big fish. So get ready. It's another game-changing project. So I'll leave it at that. I can't say much more about that. So I'll turn it over to Katie, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Gil.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Welcome, Jeff and Gilberto. Happy to share some information with you in terms of our business retention and expansion initiatives. I gave each one of you guys a packet. It has some information on there, our year-to-date numbers. Since June has not yet concluded, I believe that the latest metrics we have in there are from May. Please review those at your convenience and let me know if you have any questions or suggestions. We're happy to take feedback. Also, in terms of business retention and expansion initiatives, we connected with the Women's Chamber, the CVB, and the Downtown Advisory Board about creating a downtown women's walking tour. And we heard back from the Main Street Advisory Board, and the general consensus is that it's similar to a project that they're already working on developing. And so they opted not to get involved with this one, but I took the research and information that we had developed and shared it with the Women's Chamber of Commerce as well as the Kerrville Chamber of Commerce. So both of those entities are reviewing that information to see if it might be a fit elsewhere in the community. I do have that information that I'm happy to provide to anyone else if somebody wants to review that and see if there's another application that we can use some of those ideas in. But it did come from, I recently attended a conference in Louisville, Kentucky, and as I was wandering around their downtown area, saw how they had executed a really beautiful women-owned business walking tour in their downtown core. And there was just some really cool marketing opportunities and ways to bring exposure to those women-owned businesses. And I'm confident that many of their neighboring businesses, whether they're women-owned or not, experienced some uptick in their revenues and visits as well. We connected with the Kerrville Independent School District as well as Clint Orms, Silversmith. They are looking on creating an education pathway for students. So Dr. Ringo had reported that they have, I believe that the KISD has something like 13 different educational pathways. So the next step after that meeting was to get with the specialists that take care of those pathways in the school district to find out if Clint Orms Silversmith has an overlap with any of their existing pathways. If so, it would be easier to weave them into what they're currently offering and potentially have students enrolled in a program as early as next fall. If it doesn't coincide with one of their existing pathways, it's something that they would have to go through a bit of an application process, and it could be offered as soon as next January 2025. 2026, excuse me. So that was a good conversation. We also worked with a developer to complete a Kerr County tax abatement application that had already been approved by Kerr County. It's my understanding that they're also working with the city of Kerrville because the property is located in the city limits. So we helped them get that application submitted. So no doubt the city will be hearing more from them at a later date. In terms of childcare, we did connect with Mark Larson, who is Early Matters in San Antonio. I recently received a copy of his strategic report of what they're doing to address their childcare needs in San Antonio. It is a draft of their report, but I'm happy to provide that PDF to anybody who's interested. Please just let me know or reach out to me. In other very exciting news, in terms of childcare advancements, there was a nonprofit in the community that reached out to us recently, and they have a 17,000 square foot facility that I visited recently, and it could be repurposed for childcare. So we are in the process of researching that solution more and finding out what possibilities exist. But right now, we're feeling encouraged and optimistic about that as a potential solution. For marketing, we continue to attend Toby Lee's Highway 16 Drive on Jam Broadcasting twice monthly, giving the community members an update on what the KEDC is working on and trying to increase our visibility in the community and ask for feedback from other citizens that might be listening to the radio station. You can also see in the packet that I provided with you our social metrics report to date from June. We actually had a decrease in engagement in our Facebook content. However, our newsletters remain very high and our newsletter readers remain very engaged. So what we've done is we've actually decided to double down on our newsletter readers and increase our newsletters that go out on a monthly basis and slightly decrease some of our Facebook posting. And we are exploring a couple other ways to increase engagement and visibility on those social platforms. That concludes my report. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Questions for either Gil or Katie?
It's a lot.
Always a lot. Sounds like there's a lot
Yeah,
of
but
to
doing
be
really
excited
well.
about.
Katie, would you email me that, childcare from San Antonio you were talking about, please?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Okay, thank y'all both for being here and to update. Item 5B, Rural Economic Improvement Project Status Update.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank y'all for being here. For those new members, welcome. We're excited to have y'all here and looking forward to this year. Just going to run down the list real quick. So Peterson Medical Center campus infrastructure improvements. For the new members, this was a kind of a two-phase project. When they got, Peterson was finished with the parking lot, they received the first tranche of funds. The total grant was $1.6 million, and they received a $800,000 payment upon completion of that infrastructure. And then they applied for and got paid for the second tranche not long ago, and that is once they got to substantial completion for the surgery center. So for those of you that were able to last week, you were invited to an open house to go take a look at that. And so it looks like a really nice facility. If Gil, if you haven't had a chance to go in there, we could probably arrange for an additional kind of tour and go see it. I wasn't able to make it myself, so I'd like to go check it out.
Who was, were most of, were the, you went, the two of you?
I did not. I'd like to see it.
I
Okay.
think they start
Yeah,
surgery
get us another
tomorrow.
one.
Yep.
For those that didn't get to go, we'd
We
love
can
a
ask if
little-
we're allowed to go into a surgery, but
Okay. I don't actually need that much.
fair enough, fair enough.
Yeah, it's state of the art.
That's awesome.
Moving down, so the downtown area streetscapes. So this one is moving along. Y'all have $113,000 left in this budget. And we have been working with Callow Foundation on some of the plantings that they have currently over by Club Charles, and they want to see if they can transplant some of those into our planter boxes that are right there. So the last piece is the landscaping. So that kind of reduces some of our portion. And so we have a scope of work for $44,000. That's our last piece of that. So we should be returning some money.
We get money back. Did y'all hear that?
Should be returning some money.
Should be.
Final till it's final. But we're hopeful that we'll be able to bring back about $70,000 on that project. Downtown River Trail extension. So, I'm sorry I wasn't here last time, but Kyle Burrow gave you all kind of an update on transportation alternatives. And so, just a little quick recap. Transportation Alternatives is a project that TxDOT implements to just make safer routes. So they have safe routes to schools. They just have general transportation alternative projects. So where there isn't a sidewalk on a street, on a highway, some system that they have, if there's an alternate means and methods to get people to and from a certain place, they like to look at those projects and they fund those usually at an 80-20 rate. And so I wanted to bring that up because it has taken a while for the River Trail, right? Easement acquisition is certainly been an interesting process. I got some clarity on one of the pieces of property, which is the Callows property. That property's under contract. And so as it's under contract, it's really hard for them to divest themselves of that easement. And so that's part of that ongoing conversation, just to kind of clear up some piece of that. But what I wanted to bring up with you all is, do we want to bring up to the council kind of a pivot at this point to go after the remainder of the easements and kind of take this project from a construction project for this little portion to, let's get all the easements from here to G Street. And then once we hit January, end of this year in December, we can put in an application again for this project to TxDOT for a transportation alternatives grant. And if we get it, depending on how much they would fund, it would be a pretty good reduction in what EIC's portion of this, what we all know is a very expensive portion of the River Trail. So I kind of wanted to gauge y'all's interest in that because, you know, it's already been turned over to the council, right? It's a city project. The council has until the end of this year, essentially per the contract, to be done, which we're not going to meet. There's no way we're going to get to construction completion by December. So if you all wanted to, we could approach the council and have a discussion about that.
Okay, so this is the section of the River Trail that goes from, the entirety of the section goes
Library.
from G Street to the library.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, on the side where the trail system hasn't already been built. Because this was a really expensive, to the tune of twice or more as much as the other trail segments that have been done, it was split in half. So we have been working, even before I was on this body, to secure the construction, the easements, and then start the construction on the phase that's from the, let's see, it goes from the library to
Pavilion.
the pavilion. For those of you, I guess, who are new, we still have 3 pending easements. Is that correct? 3 pending? 2? We're down to 2. Okay, 2 easements. And so there was kind of a shift in conversation when we became aware that we were not going to, as Michael said, be able to complete that obligation that we had set aside the money and the funding and the construction contract for by the end of December was our deadline. So then we had a few conversations about what do we need to do. Kyle came in last month, told us about transportation alternatives, and how we could do exactly what Michael put together for us, which was to link this to the larger segment, link it back up. Spend this time trying to get those easements. TxDOT really wants you to have the easements before they'll look at funding the project. So rather than still focusing just more narrowly, but focusing more broadly just on the easement acquisition right now, hope to get that by the end of year so that the full submittal to TxDOT could be for that entire piece of the River Trail. Am I saying
That's
that?
exactly what we would propose.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd want to use a little bit of the funding, probably to, as much as I love being your right-of-way agent, I'm not very good at it. because I don't have the time dedicated towards it.
And
Now,
what funding is that?
it'd be limited, just to, I'd have to come back to you with it, if y'all want to
Okay.
consider that.
It would still be an 80/20.
So
Well,
you're
for
talking,
now,
he's
the easement
talking,
acquisition would be 100% on us,
Oh.
right?
oh, okay.
Now, we could get, I think we could get the majority of it down to G Street. Mr. Howard has already acquired a piece of it. We own several of those pieces past the pavilion already. There shouldn't be too many stretches that are complicated. Now, if any of those properties are under contract to be sold, that ties them up, right? And so I couldn't tell you exactly where every one of those properties is at right now. But we could bring it back if y'all want to consider that.
So if we know that this project is gonna lapse because it's not gonna be completed by the deadline, realistically, that's not gonna happen, obviously. We just let it lapse and let you guys continue with direction from this body as far as what you all wanna do. I mean, we could say, scrap the whole thing, we wanna move in a completely different direction. We don't even wanna look at this segment anymore, we're tired of dealing with it. Or we could say, continue to try and acquire those easements, and then we'll look at the bigger TxDOT project.
Tim, I'll chime in, because I voted against this segment, not because I love the river trail, but just the cost for how much stretch we were gonna get out of it. I really like the TxDOT program and the bang for the buck that we would get to be able to take it all the way from the library to G Street. So I would be supportive of instructing staff to go ahead and get a right-of-way agent, get them paid to acquire easements all the way, and then let's go full on to try to apply for that TxDOT grant.
I was hearing you correctly that the grant would be the 80% if we have the 20%?
That's correct, yes, ma'am. Now, worst case scenario, they say no, you've now acquired all the easements, right? And we have them, which is just a wonderful thing for us to have, even if we don't get the award. They said last year that it's a great project, don't move it forward, you don't have your easements, so it's not gonna get anywhere. So TxDOT's already looked at it and they like it as a project, and so that's a good sign.
So do you think the money that we have designated for this project right now, if it was only 20% of the full project, would fund that based on what we've already designated for the project?
Maybe. So I think initially this section was $800,000 and then it jumped up to 1.1 million, the one that you had funded currently. And previously the second section was, I think, just under 2 million, and now that was 2.2. So you were looking at 3.3 million for the whole thing. So when we get to January of 25, when they make, the application deadlines hit, what is that number going to be? I think it's under 4. So I think your $850,000 that's left, it covers that, I think, but maybe not.
There's no way to
completely.
know, I know.
Maybe not
Yeah.
completely.
Okay, so what do we do if we go this route, which I think it's to me sounds like the prudent thing to do right now, but then we get there and what if the numbers are just totally, I mean, TxDOT awards this grant and then, I mean, we're automatically on the hook for 20% and we don't know what 20% is right now?
There'll be time to kind of run through those iterations. If there's any additional funding, I think it would be, again, because it's 20%, it's not a substantial amount, right? So if the whole project is 4, let's say it's 4, and it ends up being, I don't know, 4.5, your additional 20% on that would be, we'd come back for an ask of $100,000, which I think is reasonable given that, if it was funded entirely by you all, you'd be at $3 million. So, right? So it wouldn't be, the delta wouldn't be huge, I don't think.
It's worth considering because we know that the river trail is very popular and a lot of people want to see that happen. And then it creates, for the people who use it, it creates a full loop around the river. And for us to be able to support it at 20% of the cost would be prudent, as you would say. It would be good use, good fiduciary use of the funds that we have available to us.
Questions, comments? Anybody else want to weigh in?
I will,
Okay.
if we get all the easements, right?
Yes, sir.
Got a piece of property under contract, what if it takes a year to close, or they close and they say, no, we're gonna go eminent domain for the river trail at that point in time, or would we just have to kind of rock back on our heels and reevaluate it?
We have to do a little bit of that. The same condition that exists today could exist in a year. You know, we're working through it right now.
So even if that were to happen, the Tech Stop program is every other year. So it would still give us another year, 2026, to continue to work on that so that we could reapply in 2027. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I don't hear anyone saying that they want to take this project off the table. Am I wrong? Okay. And then, so you want to use some of the funds that we have set aside to acquire a right-of-way agent to help secure those last? That's,
I wouldn't mind doing that. Yeah.
okay. Do we need to authorize you to do that, and have discussion about whether or not we want to source those out for acquisition of the remaining right-of-ways on that stretch?
So I think we'll have to bring it back. We'll look at the agreement and see what's allowed within that. We also have to go talk to council, right? Because they have another, you know, they're a part of this discussion as well. Because
If we say, hey, as a body, we'd like to hear more about this, getting a right-of-way agent and trying to get, and prioritizing getting all, if possible, of those easements acquired before December. That's what you need from us today, if that's what everyone feels like is the right move to make.
I can take that to the council and we can work within the existing agreement, or we don't.
That's what I was gonna ask, are we gonna, I mean, are we allowed to use those funds, I guess, under the current agreement, to acquire those easements or not? Or will we have to come back and have another funding agreement type of situation?
Probably have another funding agreement.
Okay, so probably if we want to, we need to have some actionable, item. And does this mean public hearing also?
Yeah, because
Oh.
Professional services, but maybe not.
True. Okay, well,
think it'd be
y'all
probably
can
so.
work through that, but I mean, given that it's June, right, we probably wanna make sure if everyone is on board with giving direction to bring back some more information about, acquiring those easements and getting some help in doing that. We need action item on that, or just our.
We know what to do. We'll
direction?
come back to you.
Okay. Am I speaking for someone that doesn't feel that way, that wants to?
Well, I think it's a good project. We should do everything we can. We're this far into it. We might as well try to finish it up.
Good?
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, golf course improvements, they're moving. Phase 1 is starting. Phase 2 is, bids are out in the paper. I believe they should be out now. And so we should get responses back in the next month. Be able to take that to council for a bid award on the golf contractor that's going to actually do the green renovation. Have to do it now because they're all locked up by the time the season starts. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that course is closed down in January and open back up at the end of July, very early August. Olympic pool renovations, we're in design at this point. Be in design for almost the next year. It's going to be a little while. Ashley and her team have been meeting with those folks just to kind of talk through the design components. And the pool will be, it's open for this year, but during construction next summer, the pool is going to be closed. And so that was kind of what we've talked about all along. So closed for 1 year and then renovated for, you know, at least another 25 years before it has to get any work done. Maybe 50 if we're talking. Theater improvements, we are finalizing the plan review. We have design comments back to the architect, and so they're going to incorporate those, and we will get those out for construction drawings and get going. And the plan is for that to be closed beginning of March and be shut down for anywhere from 4 to 6 months. So it's kind of the slowest time in the theater's process. And like I said to Jeffrey Brown, if anything breaks between now and then, we're all going to hold hands because we agreed that this money is for reconstruction, not repair. So hopefully we can get through the summer. It's kind of the hardest time. Winter is fairly easy for them to get through. It's the HVAC, it's the heating, the cooling that's kind of the harder part for us. Travis Street Pump Station upsizing, that is also in design, and we are working our way through that. And with that, I will turn it over for any questions.
Did a thorough job. Thank you, Michael. Tina, are you ready for our monthly financial update?
Good afternoon and welcome newcomers. All right, so we're going to look at May financials. And we're just jumping right in, going down this spreadsheet here. We begin with the revenues. So your March sales in the community brought in May sales tax of $435,000. This is down 5.6% compared to May of last year. Construction was down, manufacturing was down, wholesale trade was down, all the bigger categories. But utilities was up, and some of the smaller categories were up. So it makes that deficit a little bit less on us, but down 5%. However, June sales tax came in last week, and that was $422,000. It is up almost 11%. We had a couple of future period payers and auto payments that came in, but even if we take those out, we are still up 5.4%. Do remember that this was the eclipse month, so we were waiting on those numbers to see what it was going to do. So that's a plus. Not as great as we wanted it to be, but it's pretty good. May tax puts you year to date at $3.31 million. Our budget estimate is at $3.4 million, so you're behind by $88,000 for the year so far. We are watching that very closely. It's going to help us determine where we want to set fiscal year 25 budget. Are we going to stay flat? Are we going to do a little less? Still up in the air on that, but more to come. Next revenue down is interest income, $133,000 for the month. $94,000 was earned on your revenue bonds, and $39,000 in the remaining investments you have. So year to date, $799,000, and you have a positive $705,000 for the year. Down to your expenditure section, you have total expense for the month, $849,000. Just your regular services, City of Kerrville contract, debt service, and then your projects. As Mr. Hornis said, your second installment to Peterson went out for $800,000. The downtown utilities, $20,000, and then golf course improvements moving $29,000 for the month.
And Trina, before you go on, so where are we? The River Trail project. That's the downtown River Trail 500,000 that we have already designated.
So we've designated actually. Look at my other page here.
Oh, that's
we're moving $125,000 quarterly, even though it's not being spent. We're moving it out of EIC's fund to the CIP fund, and on our project section, I can't get my papers.
You're moving the downtown River Trail into the CIP.
Yes, ma'am.
So
from Fund 40 to the city's capital improvements fund. Just for cash flow reasons, we had decided to do that. Year to date, we have only spent $175,000, I believe.
Okay, so how are we gonna reconcile all of that if we change course and direction?
Well, so the majority of that was the engineering from Hewitt Engineering. Some of that was easement acquisition, but most of it was John's work.
Because we can't transfer, city can't transfer back to EIC, is that correct, once it's in city?
No, we don't, I think.
We can.
Can transfer back?
We've given money back in the past.
Yeah, because you're only obligated to what you have actually spent. So
right.
I think it was just more for finance staff to have kind of an orderly transfer of those funds on expected.
I just wonder at this point if maybe since it's not an ongoing project, if maybe it shouldn't just be an automatic transfer. I don't know.
We could stop it.
Yeah, we can stop.
Yeah.
Sure.
Until we see that
Until
the
we know what's
project's going
happening.
forward, I mean, we've already transferred more than
Then
the
what
cost
was
to
spent,
date.
yeah.
I think we need to pause it until we see a
We could
better
certainly do that.
direction.
We can do that.
Yep.
And I mean, I can transfer everything that's been unspent so far.
let us make sure that council's on board with what we're talking about, and then,
Okay.
but for now, we can.
I think it'd be cleaner
pause it.
that way. Then we can do actual costs, as it goes forward.
Yeah, that'll be good to be able to see, especially for that, what's
Like
been
we're
spent.
handling the rest of the projects as
Yep.
monthly as
Yeah.
they're happening.
Okay.
Okay, so, net change of position, negative 573,000 for the month. But you have a lot going out and things are moving, so. Okay, on to cash flow, very basic. Your first column, bottom row, is showing your ending cash balance for May, 26.2 million. And then to the right columns, you have the remaining fiscal year 24 projections. Those are all projections, obviously, and they'll get updated as the months go by. And then last slide here is your financial analysis. So it's just reflecting, top left chart is your sales tax comparisons year over year and month over month. So right now, through May, we are actually 0.5% ahead of last year. So I know it's been crazy, very volatile, up and down each month, and it's been on the edge of our seats, but that's where we're at, so it's pretty good. Bottom left chart is remaining project commitments. And then chart to the right is your cash analysis and short-term investments. Tax pool average yield this month was 5.46, and then your average in your investments is 5.48, so looking pretty good.
So
Yes,
just
ma'am.
to be clear, even though you show you dispersed on the River Trail 750,000, that's just because you've been taking out those automatic
Yes, ma'am.
payments, but you really have just spent 100 and
I believe it's like 175.
yeah, 175. Yeah, so that's
What are the maturities on the commercial paper and that treasury note?
It's gonna be fiscal year 25. One was a 9-month and one was a 18-month, I believe. So I don't have the exact months on me, but you just locked those in last month.
You know, if we start seeing rates start to come down as we approach the end of the year, we might want to think about trying to identify at least some portion of that tax pool cash, 5.8 million, and extending some of that yield a little bit further before rates start coming down.
Okay. We'll look at your cash flow and just see what you have going out and what's available.
Yeah, it's keeping us in a good spot right now, considering sales tax. Sure.
Any further questions?
Do we need to take any action on the pause?
So do we just wanna hit pause, guys, or do we wanna get an actual and then go ahead and get our funds, our current funds back? So we've got, I mean, obviously council has to approve it, but, to start with, we get our funds back in our account and then we spend as needed. What do you think, and then what do you guys wanna recommend?
Whatever you want to do.
If we're potentially going to spend some money on right-of-way acquisition, I don't know what that is. It's probably a lot more than what's been transferred over to date. But I
How much
think
have we
it's,
transferred over?
750.
750.
750. I don't think we'd spend, because we've actually spent 175, something to that.
That's correct. And again, most of that is the engineering, right, for the project.
I kind of feel like, I don't.
It wouldn't hurt for us to get it back, put it in one of your commercial papers, right? And then get the contract.
From now to the end of the year, we'll be doing easement acquisition should everybody be on the same page. I can't imagine that being anything that would come close to the 750.
No, that's going to be in the 5s and the 10s, maybe $10,000. I wouldn't even imagine it would be that much.
We got 520.
I just think because we are holding on so tight to the purse strings right now, I think we have to be even more mindful of,
I want to be y'all's right-of-way agent. I really do. I just don't have the time
I don't,
to do it.
But we want to spend it on right away. But
No, I
just
do.
get
I want to
this
have
done.
money to spend on that. I'm just saying, it would, since we're at a kind of a good delineation in project. It might be a good to get the balance back and then to go forward and on a
On something new. Okay.
if the city's okay with that.
And then
That way, when
get
we're looking at
reimbursed
the
for it.
financials, we're looking at what's actually coming out every month instead of just an automatic transfer that's coming out occasionally. And we're trying to constantly see if we have enough in there and how much is spent versus how much has been set aside over into that account.
Yeah, I think what we can do for you is kind of, maybe we can add something into this category that's, because we have to do, finance has got, this is a small part of their larger picture, right, that they work
Right,
on.
absolutely,
So
yeah.
they'll transfer those funds out in the expectation that this year we're gonna spend, $600,000 on Project X, and we end up spending 100, so we could maybe add a category in there that's just actual dollars spent to date, on the projects, in addition to like what we've sent over, just a project-specific list of, just an added column. You've spent $175,000 actual spend in this project. That'd be helpful.
Well, right now, this is the only project that we're doing like that. So all the rest are being moved over,
As-
reimbursing CIP.
I mean,
as
yeah,
they're
because I
happening.
mean, I think that this was gonna be under construction, it was gonna be ongoing, we're
Yeah.
just gonna keep like pulling that money over into there, and now it's not, it's kind of, we're doing it a little bit differently, so it's, I don't wanna make more trouble, but it seems like if it was back in our account, then we wouldn't constantly be trying to compare where we are versus what we're doing now, and we could spend as expenses come up, but for finance and accounting,
I personally would like to move it as it's happening monthly.
you,
Or,
okay.
if it's spent monthly, we'll move it over monthly.
Well,
It's
let's-
easier.
Are y'all okay doing that? Okay. Give us,
Happy, I'm happy.
And I
That's how I
believe
do
when we started
finance.
the transfer quarterly, it was just a impromptu discussion. It wasn't, nothing set in stone. I don't believe it's in the contract either, but, I could just return it.
let's do that.
Okay. Alrighty.
Other questions for Trina? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We are now at item number 6. Item 6A, we are going to nominate, this is our annual meeting, we're going to nominate and elect a president, a vice president, a secretary, and a treasurer. And I know who I want to nominate for secretary and treasurer already. Do we formally do that in this process? Do we
Yes, at every annual meeting.
do? Okay. Okay, so
Lump them together.
currently, Keisha, you are our secretary, correct?
City Secretary's office.
The city, okay. And then the finance office. And we don't designate a person, we just designate the office, like a designee of that office. Okay. Well, I would like to nominate the office of the city finance department as treasurer, and I would like to nominate the office of the city secretary's office of the city of Kerrville as the secretary for the EIC for fiscal year 25. Is that? No, I'm sorry. Our year is not the same as our annual meeting. I would like to nominate them for this EIC year, from May, or from June until May of next year.
I second that.
Thank you. I'm glad you understood me. All right, we have a motion and a second. Please raise your hand, right hand if you're in favor. Okay, all right, that passes unanimously. All right, so we need nominations for president and vice president at this point.
I would like to nominate Kim for president. She's done such an exceptional job this year.
Second?
Well, thank you both. I will accept the nomination, and before we vote, let's have any discussion, because obviously if someone else wants to step up and do this job, then we can put that name out there as well. Okay, well, assuming you all raise your hand, I'll be happy to accept. So if you're in favor of that, please let it be known by raising your hand. Okay, so we are going to need a vice president. Now, currently, Greg is serving as our vice president. And as you all know, our EDC positions opened up because of some movement on the board. I would like to consider Greg for that position, but Greg, certainly I don't want to.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea to get someone in the vice president position who's gonna be on for a while. And this is gonna be my last year, so,
And my last year as well. So with that, I would say Celeste and or Beck would be great at doing this job.
I think Celeste is an excellent idea.
Would you like to nominate her?
I nominate
All right.
Celeste, yes.
Okay. Are you okay with that nomination?
For vice president?
For vice?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I will second that nomination then. Is there anyone else that wants to have discussion about that? All right. Let it be known by raising your hand if you're in favor of that. Okay, perfect. All right, so,
It's a lot nicer board. Normally, if you're gone, you get elected to president. or
well,
vice president.
we're getting there, we're getting there. As I mentioned, I would like to, for the board to consider Greg for the KEDC position. He's certainly been on that board and has experience on that board, and I think would serve us well as the KEDC member from EIC. So I will nominate Greg Appel to be our KEDC representative on, our EIC representative on the KEDC board.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Now here's where I'm gonna get the guy that's out. He's already been on the Go team, and he did a great job. So I know he would love to be nominated again. So I'm gonna nominate Kyle Bond to be our EIC representative on the Go team.
second.
Motion's okay. Any discussion? All right. If you're in favor, please let me know by raising your hand. All right. Okay. Done and done. Okay, thank you, everybody. All right, now, consideration and possible action. This is item 7A. This is the Economic Development Grant Funding Agreement from the City of Kerrville, Texas to EIC for park improvements for an amount not to exceed $800,000.
All right, good afternoon. As a reminder, this allocation was included in your sales tax revenue bond for $800,000 for miscellaneous park improvements. Proposed projects include playground improvements, which will eat up the majority of the money, UV light disinfection system installation at a couple of our parks, and Singing Wind park improvements if the budget allows. So the first playground up for recommendation for replacement is Kerrville Shriner Park. It is currently closed to the public right now due to safety concerns. That playground is upward of 30 years old. It's too old to where we can get replacement components for it, and it just needs to be totally replaced. So this is what we're looking at. We're looking at doing a shade structure over the playground to provide shade. That's something that's in our master plan, something that the public wants to see. We are moving away from the engineered wood fiber mulch and going towards artificial turf. And this will require less maintenance for our team and a more stabilized surface, and it does meet playground code, and it's actually more recommended for that. So that's what we're looking at for Kerrville Shriner Park. Guadalupe Park is the second one that we're recommending for replacement with this project. This playground is 30 years old. It went in 1994, actually when Mayor Joe Herring was mayor the first time around. Dug into the history on that and found the ribbon cutting and all that cool stuff. So I think it's kind of interesting. But again, not closed yet for safety issues, but it's getting to that point. We can't find parts to replace. They don't make them anymore. So this is the option that we kicked around originally. It's a really cool playground, but we actually went back and asked our consultant to give us some options for an inclusive playground, which would be 100% ADA inclusive for wheelchair accessible children, and accessible to all ages and abilities for special needs and or children without special needs. So we are leaning towards this option. It's in our master plan. It's a little bit more expensive. So the numbers that you see in your agenda packet might change, but the total amount that we're looking to spend under this project of $800,000 will still be the cap. We're not looking to ask you for more money. We just might rearrange the projects to accommodate the budget.
I think the shade is for,
Yes, it'll be the same setup as KSP. We're looking at a shade structure and the artificial turf for the fall zone. Any questions on playground replacements?
Ashley, does the new playground equipment have a longer useful life than what we had 30 years ago, or is it about the same?
So modern playgrounds are about 20 to 30 years, depending on a couple of factors. Us being in Texas with the weather, we're seeing about 20 to 30 years worth of life. So that's what we anticipate getting out of these playgrounds as well. As long as they're commercial playground equipment, which we intend to buy. Okay, the next project is the installation of a UV light disinfection system at the Louis Hayes Park Spray Ground and the Carver Park Spray Ground. Texas State Code requires a dual disinfection system for interactive water features, which these both are. There's several different factors that you can use or supplementary systems. Right now we're using a chemical. It's getting harder and harder to obtain due to supply chain issues, and the UV system is a little bit expensive, but it allows for us to be able to not rely on chemicals and human error. It's something that is highly recommended within the industry and something that I would like to see us move forward with. If we do not have a secondary disinfection system, we would require closure of both facilities. So right now we're operating currently, but I can't say that for the future if we do have problems finding that chemical.
a question about those. Is that water recirculated? So
Yes, it is. It's similar to a swimming pool.
good.
Yeah.
And so you're able
Great.
to reuse it. It's not just one shot. and
That's
it's
correct.
gone.
It's on a recirculation system, filtration system, just like a pool. It's not a one-time pass-through. Great question. Okay, and the final project that we would recommend pursuant to the budget would be some improvements to Singing Wind Park. As you recall, this park was the #1 recommended park for improvements in our parks master plan. It was recommended to be included in the bond project, but it was not included. And so we would like to take any leftover funds in this particular bond allocation and perhaps do some low-hanging fruit projects such as a disc golf course. Again, that's all contingent on the budget, where the chips fall. If we have leftover funds and under that $800,000, that's where we would like to utilize the funds. Staff will also be applying for grants through the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. Those are due in August, so we're working diligently on those to get those submitted. If we are awarded those, it's typically based on, you have to have a match. And so if we have the commitment from the EIC, we will receive a highly more favorable application status from the Parks and Wildlife Department. And with that, I am recommending approval of the funding application and direction to draft a funding agreement for consideration at your next meeting and calling for a public hearing. Happy to answer any questions you have.
I have one question. So the grants that you're looking for from Texas Parks and Wildlife, do those include these playgrounds? Is that what you're saying? So that would be we would be the matching grant for those playgrounds?
Yes, for these projects. We're applying for everything that we would be qualified for the grants. We're looking at a lot of them.
Actually, a just quick question. You guys do such an amazing job with maintaining our parks, and through nothing that I fault you for, but just as a question, with so much to maintain, is there, it would be nice if we were spending funds on maybe something new or upgrade rather than replacement. So I guess as far as budgeting goes and things like that, with all of the parks that we have, I don't know what my question is specifically. I guess it's more of a comment, and maybe you can speak to how you guys budget for the replacement of.
Sure. Yeah, sounds like you're asking about how we budget and then what our prioritizations are for our department. So the priority for our department and board is priorities of the master plan, and that we have adopted, the council's adopted as well.
and focusing on existing needs in parks before developing new parks. We have existing needs in parks. We have playgrounds that need to be replaced. We have infrastructure that needs to be replaced. And also having the appropriate resources to do it, having the budget and having the staff. And that's the biggest challenge for us, is because the piece of the pie is only so big and we're only allocated what we get. And that goes for the same for all the other departments. So our job is to do the best that we can to maintain what we can with the resources that we have.
I'm going to just say that one of the meetings, it was, Julie talked about that the city was starting to create a budget for long-term capital expenses and long-term maintenance. And is that still happening? Because that's what I'm hearing in your question.
That's
Like,
that
why,
speaks to
you
my
know,
question,
and
yeah.
I have talked with Michael and Mike about why we're not creating reserves with new projects to create that kind of reserve account.
So the challenge in this particular tranche of funding is that y'all have to spend these dollars within 3 years. The city's assets are massive, I guess is a good way to describe it. So we fund about $2.4 million in street renovations each year. If we wanted to be at or in line with what we need to spend, it's more than that. And so each one of the things that we own has a depreciation to it. And are we keeping up with that depreciation? No. And we haven't for 70 years, 100, however long we've been a city. Cities are historically not great at that because that's a huge amount of money, right? So we're working on measures to create an asset replacement fund and fund that incrementally from the general fund side as much as we can do. To y'all's purpose, recommendation from staff as we move into the new golf course and the renovations to the Cali Theater, which are funded by, actual admission costs, is to tack on a capital improvement fee to each one of those green fees or ticket purchases that will help alleviate that cost over the next 25 years. I don't know that it would actually cover the cost. Typically, the amount of money that you would put in there would be probably shot down, and for good reason, because we still want to make these things, affordable and economical. But that is our plan, is to start adding some pieces to that.
Yeah, not so y'all both, yeah. First, with the presentation, I think everything that you're asking for is absolutely appropriate, so it's not a question about that. And second, thank you for helping me say what I was trying to ask, which is channeling Gary here for a minute. When a lot of what EIC is funding to the tune of $20 million, vast majority of that is replacement of things that are already in existence. It would make probably me feel better to think that maybe future boards weren't going to always be faced with doing the same, helping with capital improvements of the city, that we really are going to be able to look more at River Trail and quality of life and those kinds of improvements, infrastructure, but not the replacement part of that, So hearing that is good, and
Yes,
I won't be on this board when 20 years comes around, and we'll see what's
You never
still
know.
working and what needs to be replaced again.
No,
but-
I wouldn't go there necessarily.
but
We'll never get
anyway.
it right, but
But
needs
that's the
approaching.
point. Just anything that the city looks forward in doing, so that when future EIC boards are looking at projects, they're really considering the future needs of the city, not the repairs of what's already been put in place. So.
Ask one more question in that regard, because both said that it was illegal. So is that under a Texas codified for cities or codified for?
Is there a definition between maintenance and replacement? I think that's what's going on there.
Well, so for the bond proceeds for the project, you literally have 3 years to spend, 95% of those proceeds, right? So there's one of the projects that is funded through other means as well, the Heart of the Hills Heritage Center. And that has a reserve fund that was built into the budget from the fundraising portion of it. And those funds are restricted only in that they're meant for capital improvement. as opposed to these funds, which are restricted to really the timing for which you can spend the dollars, and they have to meet the intent of what the code says they can be spent on. So these ones can't be set aside. You can't take $2.2 million and go, okay, we're gonna spend two, and we're gonna save 200 for future maintenance of this thing. They don't, the bond covenants don't allow for that.
Right, but also, you know, on some of the other city projects, I've asked that, why it wouldn't happen. So is this a state code, or is this our city code, or what?
So like the city can do that as much as they want to. We're constrained, from the general fund standpoint, you're constrained by property tax caps and increases and a laundry list of, again, there's $100 million worth of projects and there's $2 million available to get it done. And so we can, and the councils that are here now and previously that have been working towards creating those asset replacement funds, those capital improvement funds, it's fantastic. It takes one city council to decide, you know what, let's spend that money on whatever, and that money is gone. So if you, this is why I think this recommendation from staff for like golf and for the theater is to set aside a fee that is restricted fund for that. It's hard to do that for all of your assets, right? So you have a public park, you can't really do that. I mean, you can. It's hard because it's one, like Ashley said, it's one pie, and who gets what piece of it, right?
So the EIC, that code, is that a Texas code, or is that the code that the city set up for the EIC when the corporation was developed? So.
It's Texas law.
Texas.
It's Texas law. Okay. Just very curious about who decided that was a good.
Good questions. Okay. Thank you, Ashley. Any questions for Ashley specifically about projects or for staff about anything related to this?
I will say that the grant funding, I think our focus on that grant is to basically focus on Singing Wind Park improvements. The grant ask, here's the additional things we'd like to do. Like to do those out at Singing Wind Park, and we had a good list. We have it scoped out.
Yeah, how much are the two parks that that's what I thought too, but the two parks you brought up first and weren't Singing Winds, they were the city park and then the Guadalupe Street Park, right?
Those are based off of maintenance needs.
Yeah, so is that a majority of that 800,000 in those two projects, or is majority still going to Singing Winds?
Majority will be going to the capital improvements for the other parks.
662 of that 800 was those two
Sorry, I
park
don't
features.
have, okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
so the majority is those two replacement pieces.
Okay,
Yeah.
so.
Any leftover would go towards Singing Wind.
What's the dollar amount of the improvements at Singing Wind that would like to be done but haven't been done?
So with that master plan, it ranged from about 5 to 8 million, depending on the specific improvements. And for this project, we would recommend doing, again, low-hanging fruit, something that doesn't require a lot of maintenance because our department's operating at capacity. We don't really have the ability to take on maintenance of more parks or amenities. So doing low maintenance items, projects, I can certainly share with you, and it's on our website, the Singing Wind Park Master Plan, but it's designated into 4 different zones, and there's a lot of improvements that the community wanted to see us make. Yep, you're welcome.
So this is where we decide if we want to call a public hearing for next month to consider the funding application for the parks improvements to an amount not to exceed $800,000.
I'll move that we call for a public hearing.
A second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, 7B.
This is, again, another one of the sales tax bond projects. So this was included within the $20 million ask. It is $2.2 million for the creation of Granger McDonald Park. This is a park that was dedicated by Platt when the landing was set up. And so you can see that arrow there. It's an acre. It is right there on the in the floodplain of that area right there. As a part of the discussion, the request was for the creation of lid design, low impact design features to be included in that. So pervious pavers, kind of bioswales, things that UGRA would be happy to see is a good way to describe it. So keeping Tara happy. A boat ramp that would serve as an additional access point to Nimitz Lake, as well as a dock system that would kind of run along that water frontage for a, not all the way down that entire section, but down a portion of it. So the first step in that is for us to begin with the engineering. We ran through this process when we did the pool improvements. So we had the figure for getting that engineered, and then asked the EIC to consider funding the entirety of the project. And so that was the discussion last week with the city council, was to fund the engineering portion of it is $219,000. And John Hewitt and his engineering firm, who's done a lot of the River Trail stuff that you all have seen, is the engineer that we've selected for that. Part of the cost in this project that has, it's a big number for engineering, and we were all kind of a little shocked by how high that was. If you've read the paper recently, there is a new thing called well, not a new thing, it's an old thing, but it's an endangered thing now, is the mussels that are in the Guadalupe River. So the fat mucket, and my favorite, the pimpleback, which is the title for you should be in a room when they decide the names for these things, because it sounds like a lot of fun to pick it. So that's a part of the environmental in that review. You'll notice that kind of description in there in the breakdown. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to y'all. This would be to call a public hearing for next time. Again, the full ask for both the engineering and the creation of the park would be $2.2 million, and the engineering would be $200.
Michael, does that engineering include archaeological study of the property?
It does. It does. They actually have to go out and trench, and so they would do some trenching along the property.
If they find something, either from an environmental or archaeological point of view, what does that entail?
Exactly what that, it sort of depends. If it's kind of, I don't want to say your average find, then it's logged and sent to Tenorus, and they kind of go through that process. If they get something that's like repatriated, grave sites and things like that, that would go to NAGPRA, which is the grave repatriation. This is an area that has had to go through that process in the past, because this was a spot where folks congregated thousands of years ago. I mean, this really was like a central spot for folks back in the day. So we worked through this iteration. Obviously, the landing had to go through similar process, and so we'll kind of get to that hurdle when we get to it. But yeah, you got to go through quite a bit of due diligence. And I'm an archaeologist. I used to be, so that's what you can find along these water edges. As a developer, you're always hoping they don't find anything.
Right.
President Clarkson, we do have 4 citizen speakers.
Okay. Before we get to citizen speakers, I've got a request. I'm going to put Council Member Harris on the spot. Will you bring us kind of up to date on the council decision and any discussion that would be pertinent to us, if there is any in this item?
Council is 100% unanimous on this project.
Okay.
So it's a great project. It'll be something that we can, everybody can enjoy and just help Kerrville down the road. So.
Any specific questions for staff before we open for speakers? Okay, then let's go ahead and hear from our.
I do have one. So, I mean, to Ashley's point earlier about grant potential, is that something that potentially is on the table for portions of this project as well?
Yeah, so there's boat ramp grants that Texas Parks and Wildlife gives out as well. Those are, I think that caps at $250,000 for the boat ramp grant. The local non-urban grant is what they call it for the other park features. That's capped at $750,000. So we can certainly go after more than one. They don't usually award you more than one because they have limited funds, and so they kind of pick.
To the extent that there are grants available for some portions of this, then the city will.
We're going to go after all the grant funding we can for
Okay.
Texas Parks and Wildlife every year, right? This is a one-off that actually has bond dollars going towards these projects, and but we need to stretch as many of those dollars as we can. So that's going to run into multiple years, obviously, and so each year the awards are given by the state in January. So the applications are due by August, and their first meeting in January is when they make their awards. The fact that we're funded for these projects, specifically like $7 million for the aquatics and the $800,000 we're talking about, and any of that money that's going towards Singing Wind, that's going to help with grant applications. There's funding going towards this. This would help towards that as well. And we can be in process. It doesn't have to be, that nothing has been done before you apply. It's just kind of a sequencing thing. TxDOT, if they want to see one application per jurisdiction per year, I would imagine we would go for the $750,000 non-urban grant, and then go for this after the fact next year.
Good questions? Anybody else? All right, speakers?
Judy Eigner.
Somebody to pick up at daycare.
All right.
Allison Boucher.
Okay.
Good afternoon, EIC Board. My name is Allison Boucher, and I serve on the Upper Guadalupe River Center Board and reside at 424 West Crest Drive. I'm a native of the Hill Country, and I've been a Kerr County resident for 20 years. The Guadalupe River Center is something I am passionate about and support for many reasons. The Granger McDonald Park, combined with the Guadalupe River Center, is a transformational project that will benefit the quality of life for all the citizens of Kerrville and have a tremendous economic impact. Over the years, I've heard comments many times about the river here and about how underutilized it is, and wouldn't it be nice for our community to take more advantage of our greatest asset. And so to me, this project is it. We will finally have front door river access to Nimitz Lake. And the campus is thoughtfully designed and will have unique opportunities and programming with enhanced river accessibility, including accommodations for those with mobility issues. And a few of those unique opportunities include sailing camps, more triathlons, dragon boat races, and even holiday lighted boated parades. The center will also have numerous educational opportunities, including day camps for underprivileged children, STEM programs, and watershed stewardship, as well as a wide range of healthy outdoor activities. And so my why, as far as why I am very passionate about this project, is my family, the little boy I'm going to go pick up hereafter. So the river access is key, and the thoughtful infrastructure design listed is vital to creating this access and the programs planned for the River Center. And so I just want to thoughtfully ask for your support again of this project. And if y'all have any questions, we're happy to answer it. Thank you so much.
Judy Eigner.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman and Board. Judy Eichner, 604 Cardinal, here in Kerrville. Guys know that I have been supporting this project all along, and I'm just here to ask you to continue to move it forward. This is going to make a world of difference for our community. There's things that are going to come from this that we have absolutely no idea of what they're going to be. So I just encourage you, support this and keep it moving forward, and it's going to be very, very good for our community. Thanks.
John Anderson.
I'm John Anderson. I live at 2729 Indian Wells, and I'm chairman of the Upper Guadalupe River Foundation. And I'm here to urge your approval of the city request to fund development of Granger McDonald Park at the $2.2 million level. I think that there really are two really principal reasons, I think, for your support and for the city doing this. One is that the park, as proposed, will open up Nimitz Lake and the river to activities that currently don't exist anywhere in our community. So it would be a great asset for the community just developing the park. It'll bring a lot of people to the lake. I think the second reason is that with the addition of the River Center as proposed by our foundation and our partnership with the Upper Guadalupe River Authority, we will end up with McDonald Park would be the first step, and that will allow development of the rest of the River Center, which will be a remarkable thing for this community. It's going to have a community return on investment that is really going to be substantial in terms of the number of people that it will be able to bring to the lake and provide recreational and sporting opportunities that they don't have right now. So we urge your support. Thank you.
Charlie McIlvaine.
Good afternoon, EIC board members. I'm Charlie McIlvaine, interim president and CEO for the Kerrville Area Chamber of Commerce and a board member on the Upper Guadalupe River Center Committee. Each of you are aware that the Upper Guadalupe River Center Committee has worked tirelessly on plans for a unique Guadalupe riverfront park and gathering space on the banks of Nimitz Lake. The Granger McDonald Park combined with the Guadalupe River Center will create many unique prospects, including sailing, educational opportunities for STEM programs, vocational training, fitness programs, community outreach with special activities for veterans, cancer survivors, sober living homes, and physically disabled special needs for youth and adults. Programming with youth and young adult focus to include summer camps and family-oriented adventures will provide another impressive component to Kerrville's excellent quality of life enjoyed by citizens of the Hill Country and visitors to our community. Our committee fully supports the memorandum of understanding we have with the city of Kerrville, and developing the River Center campus will use an environmental focus approach based on best practices for waterway development as part of our mission, and is in alignment with the Kerrville 2050 plan and our collaborative relationship with UGRA. The infrastructure will be extremely important to creating access to Nimitz Lake and is vital for the programs planned through the River Center, including boardwalks, handicap accessible piers, and oversized pedestrian access ramps. I urge each of you to continue your support for this important park by including this $2.2 million project in the Quality of Life Bond. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today.
That's our last citizen speaker.
So what we're considering today is if we want to call a public hearing for the Granger McDonald Park in an amount not to exceed $2.2 million.
So move.
Motion
Second?
and a second. And before we vote, any discussion? All right, let's take a vote. If you're in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, and it passes. Very good. All right. And if you're here just for that item, you are welcome to stay with us. Or if you'd like to retire on to your next destination, that's understandable.
I was here for it.
Yeah. Oh, not you.
No, not me.
Not you. If you're out there. Okay. Public hearing and possible action. So these are public hearings coming up. Item 8A is a funding application to the city of Kerrville. So again, what we just approved will be moving into public hearing next month. So this is a funding application to the city of Kerrville, Texas, EIC, for Heart of the Hills Heritage Center in an amount not to exceed $2 million. And we did consider this at our previous meeting.
Madam Chair, members of the board, you did consider this. I don't have a presentation for you here, so this is the funding gap that was created when we kind of preliminarily went through the iteration of creating the Heart of the Hills Heritage Center and a budget for it. When we finally dug into it, that That price was about $5.3 million, which was about $2 million shy of what was raised. And so a request came to the EIC. The EIC considered it in conjunction with the council as a part of that $20 million sales tax bond package. And we've been running through the iterations with Miss Angelique Kennedy, who is here along with some of her board members, and their design team Quatrefoil, and kind of just finalizing a lot of those pieces. And our budget numbers they're relatively stable at this point, which is really good. We're excited to hear that from our folks. And so with that, the request is to move forward with this and hold the public hearing, and if you so choose, finalize that, and we'll get that back into the hands of the council. And the next step for us with the developer is to go to what's called a guaranteed maximum price. It's a design build process where the builder and the architect the architect works for that builder. And so we would enter into that final GMP, and project would get started, and it would finish on or before December of next year. With that, I will turn it back over.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing, but before we do that, are there any preliminary questions for staff? Hearing none, at 5:26, I'll open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers signed up to speak, Keisha?
Signed up speakers.
We don't have any, but this is a public hearing, which means you can step to the microphone if you so choose and speak about this issue, so. Gotta take her.
My name is Joe Herring Jr. My address is 431 Meadow Ridge, Kerrville, Texas. As you know, I support this project, and I'm not the only person who's held the office of mayor to support the project. The first person who walked me through that building with the idea of putting a museum there were Mark McDaniels and then Mayor Bonnie White. Bill Blackburn, the next mayor, supported the project. Judy Eichner was a champion of the project, and I want you to know this mayor also supports the project. So please, I would encourage you to approve the application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At 5:27, we'll close the public hearing. And I will entertain a motion to approve the funding application to the City of Kerrville, Texas, EIC Corporation for Heart of the Hills Heritage Center in an amount not to exceed $2 million.
So move.
Okay, we have a motion. Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion before taking a vote? Hearing none, please raise your hand if you'd like to approve this item. All right, it's unanimous. Moving forward, very good. Thank y'all. Same directions from last time. Stick with us. We will try not to have our feelings hurt if you choose to do otherwise. All right, we've got item 8B, a funding application to the City of Kerrville, Texas Economic Improvement Corporation from James Avery Craftsman Inc. for grant funding for the installation of a traffic signal on Highway 27 in an amount not to exceed $140,000.
Again, this was an item that you all previously approved, but now we're having the public hearing for it. I want to introduce Mike Van Boeven from James Avery. He's a representative here today. And so as you know, this would be a three-way traffic signal, which would alleviate a lot of the issues that we have in the morning and in the afternoon. So it's, well, I would call it a job retention and a quality of life issue all wrapped up into one. Those folks who are waiting to get out of the facility, the issues that are created where our officers and the Sheriff's Department's officers have to be out there every day. That'll alleviate a lot of those issues right there. And I don't know if there's anybody who's left because of the traffic out there, but it's a big organization, and Mr. Van Boeven can help answer those questions. As a part of that process, TxDOT is going to have to review and approve the agreement and the plan. So what will happen is that James Avery will construct with their contractor the traffic signals and then donate that over to TxDOT. And so there's a donation agreement that'll be a part of our agreement, included as an exhibit. And so they're still working through that. They've got a timeline set out, and I believe it's going to be in August.
August 8th, we expect to have all that approved.
Yeah, and so so what we'll do is hold the public hearing. If you all decide you want to move forward with that, this will be an item that comes back with the funding agreement. You'll have exhibits accounting for all that. And with that, I will turn it over to you if you have any questions for myself or Mr. Boven. And ready?
Okay. We had a good presentation about this last meeting as well. So, are there any questions before we open for public hearing for?
Got two. Michael, is this gonna be, once you, I guess you're gonna donate it to TxDOT, so that answers my question, if it was gonna be a TxDOT light or a light that was maintained by the city of Kerrville?
TxDOT, sir. It's on their network.
And the second question of it would be, do we know what kind of light is it gonna be? Is it gonna be like the one on Water Street, that's a radar light to pick up traffic, or is it gonna be a timed light?
It's going to be, the way that I understand it is that, 90% of the day, it's going to be blinking yellow. And then for that hour in the evening and in the morning, it's going to be a timed light. That's also, I think it's TxDOT's requirements that they have those radar components. So you're going to have.
Yeah, we'll have a camera, so when we come up to the drive, it will go from flash.
Mike, can you walk up to the microphone up there? Thanks.
Yeah, it'll pick up on that.
So it will be flashing most of the time, and then there's a camera system, so when people are leaving the facility, the camera will detect the car and then it'll turn red.
Wow.
They can turn. That's the way it's gonna be
For
set.
any level of traffic.
Correct.
Wow, okay.
Thank you, that was it.
Other questions before we open public hearing? All right, let's open public hearing at 5:31. Do we have anyone signed up to speak? Okay. Do the two of you want to speak anymore? Okay. 5:31 will close the public hearing. Entertain a motion on this item. So I guess we need to read this out. So this is going to be a motion again to approve a funding application for the City of Kerrville, Texas EIC from James Avery Craftsman Inc. for grant funding for the installation of a traffic signal on Highway 27 in an amount not to exceed $140,000.
I move for approval of item 8B.
Okay, a motion?
Second.
A second. All in favor? Okay, that's everyone. All righty, we didn't need to go into executive session. I do want to just report quickly that we did have a meeting between, it was, as we discussed last month, between Greg, Kyle, myself, Michael Hornis, thank you, Michael, and discussion, and Gil joined us remotely. That was it, right? Just discussion on the Go team. So not much that really will come forward as a change, but there would be possibly a few minor changes. We were able to, thanks to Dr. McCormick at Schreiner, to understand where his concerns in the Go team process or miscommunications, misunderstandings were. Felt like a lot of those had to do with just the process in general, that anyone would find confusing. But there are some things that we can bring forward as recommendations, and certainly want to make sure that we as a body understand that this Go team is functioning the way that we think it should, the way that it's intended to help this body and to help the applicants as well, and to not be overly burdensome to the city staff. So I think the overall consensus was Go team is a good idea. It has a very good purpose and it has been useful. And so we definitely want to continue doing that with maybe very, very little change or tweaks where it might be appropriate. Greg, did you want to add anything since you were at that meeting?
No, I don't think so.
So possible, number 10, possible action items discussed in executive session. We don't have any of that. Items for future agenda. Anyone have something that they want to consider placing on the agenda for a future meeting?
I just want to remind us that we'll be receiving information from Mike and Michael about whether or not we can utilize the funds that we've already approved for the downtown river trail to go towards a contract with a easement person. Is that correct? Did I say?
Yes, ma'am.
So, yeah, I just
Yeah.
Wanted to get that in the record.
All right,
'cause
very
that's
good.
what will be on the
Perfect.
agenda.
Perfect. Thank you, Celeste. All right. 5:34, we are adjourned.